Thanks for coming along to this session about trusts and major donors in Donorfy. This work has been done in Donorfy as a response to what a number of people have asked us, which is, as a smaller charity, we perhaps depend on money from trusts and major donors more than a larger one with a big individual giving program may do. So could we build in some features for that, which we have now done. We had a sort of requirements gathering conference call a few weeks ago now, probably 6 or 8 weeks ago, which was really useful. And if you were on that call, thanks for contributing to that. That was really helpful. And we've taken a lot of that on board. And I would say that we haven't built everything we're ever going to build about this topic already. We've built what we think is a good first pass, and there'll be pieces that you may want that are going to come later. But in the interest of getting it out there, getting it working, and then building on it, which is kind of the agile software development way of working, which is what we do, we want to get something out there that's useful pretty quickly. So we think we're pretty much there on that, but obviously we'll let you be the judge of that as you see the demo. So what I want to do is very briefly recap for anyone who doesn't know Donorfy where this information is going to be held, and then we're going to briefly discuss the concepts and then show the demo and get your feedback as well. So I'm going to pop across now to another tab on my browser. Hopefully you can now see the Donorfy screen. And for anyone not familiar with Donorfy, we're looking at what we call the constituent record. A constituent record is either a person or an organization that will or has given us money in the past. So a constituent record has a number of attributes about it. It's arranged over 3 tabs: profile, timeline, and connections. We're looking at the profile tab at the moment, and we can see a star rating. We can see how much money they've given at the top here, top right. We can see some alerts about any notes we want to hear about them, and everything you'd expect about their profile, where they live, how we've tagged them for various interests is shown on their profile tab. Let's hop across to timeline. Timeline is the history of their activity with us. So whether that's gifts they've made, phone calls we've made or they've made into us, mailings and that kind of thing, all shown there. That's the timeline. And the connections, which has been there for a while and probably is part of the equation when you're talking about describing major donors and who knows who. These connections are what we have described as this person's connections across to other entities in our database. This person works for Afforder Business Services, knows Maggie Smith, was once an associate of Mr. Robin Fisher, and that's all kind of mapped out on a little chart at the bottom there as well. So that was there before. So a constituent is, if you like, the person or the trust who may give us a major gift. So there's a lot more to recap on Donorfy if you've never seen it before, but I won't go through the whole demo. But just to refresh your mind that that's what a constituent is. I'm just going to pop back into the presentation to work out where I should be going next. Yeah, so that's the recap. On to the second part, which is to describe the concepts now that we've added and we've modified in Donorfy in order to accommodate major donors and trusts. We've done that. Concepts. Okay. So we have extended constituents to include, if they're a person, their major donor profile or their info, and if they're a trust, their trust info. So let me pop across to the demo and show you what that looks like. In fact, before I do that, I'll just quickly highlight what the other concepts are. So we've extended constituents. We have added a new concept called opportunities, which is the piece of information that you store in Donorfy that relates to the ask, whether it's for a major gift or for a grant. We've extended campaigns to include things that you're going to allow people to fund or to offer them to fund. So if you're building a library, it might be that someone wants to buy the bookshelves, someone else wants to buy the kitchen, and so on. And we've also added the concept of tasks and reminders. That's a new entity as well. So this fundraising is all dependent upon you building a relationship, getting back to people within the opportunity to say, you know, what about whatever the next thing is. So tasks and reminders built into Donorfy as well. So they're the concepts, and I'm just going to briefly touch on each one and show you what we've built, and then, as I say, build up your questions, enter them into the chat if you see something you want to talk about, and we'll answer them as we go. So in the constituent page, we can see that we have their constituent record, but there's nothing on here out of the box, as it were, to show that they're a major donor. So we've added in the manage piece the ability for you to add a major donor panel to this person. What that's done, you may not have seen it happen, but what it's done is it's added this panel that I'm now wiggling around in the middle of the screen here, which is their major info page. And this is the place where you put your research, your sort of background information that you know about this major donor prospect into your database. Now, you may have gleaned that research from an external source like Wealth Engine or Prospecting for Gold, or you may have done your own research, you know, online, LinkedIn, and so on. But it wants you to track a certain amount of information about this person. So the first piece of information is their capacity. So what is their capacity to give? Essentially, how much have they got to give? And we'll let you define what 5 means, what 4 means in your organization, because it may be that you're talking to people with, you know, a capacity of millions and millions to give, or tens of thousands. So we haven't prescribed what a score means for you, but you would have to do that. So if someone's got a capacity of 3, means in this fictitious charity's case, they've got a reasonable capacity of resources to give you. Propensity is the next one, and that is how likely are they to give to your kind of cause. So let's say they like our kind of cause, and it's a score of 4. And then lastly, connection. How close are we to this person? So let's say 3. All of which adds up to give us a research score of 10, which you could then use as a way of prioritizing your contacts in order to raise money for a particular campaign. Also in your research, you may have established how much giving this person typically does a year. So this person gives away £50,000 a year, typically gives a gift of £5,000, and we're going to ask him for £7,000, typically when we ask. And then what are his funding preferences? Well, a bit like tax, we can pick up his funding preferences. So he's into community development, education, and human services. Now these are straight off the government's classification of what charities do, but you can add to these as well. So if you want specific things about what they might give to, then feel free. Where does he like to give to? What projects? What locality does he like to give money to? So London and the South East in this case. So we've basically opened up a new panel about an individual constituent called Major Donor Info, and it's now saved alongside everything else that we know about him. The reason it's not on every individual's record, why we had to add it in the first place, is that not every individual on your database is going to be a major donor prospect. So you may need to just add it for the ones you have. I'm just trying to find out where that one's gone. It's disappeared. Get it back on. Right. Okay, so we're now going to move back to the presentation and look at the trust side of that is very similar. So let me just go and find the trust. Oops, chosen the wrong one, sorry. Pop back. I'll edit this out of the recording. Right, trusts. So in a similar way to a major donor, we can add a panel of trust info about what they give. This one's already there. So we have on the trust panel, rather than those capacity, propensity, and connection, we have what months do they make decisions on applications, how many months between applications do they like you to leave, how much do they give every year, gift size, suggested amount, what they give to, and where they give it. So similar range, but more trimmed to what trusts would tell you, or what you know about trusts. So that's the record keeping part of constituents, major donors, and trusts. Okay, on to the next concept. In fact, I'll jump one. I'll go to campaigns next because it makes more sense, I think, to go there first. So we've extended campaigns, which already existed here in Donorfy, to include the ability for you to describe within a campaign which items people could fund. Now, these are optional. You don't have to add this for every campaign, but if you had a capital campaign like this, the library, you might want to offer out, people can fund the bookshelves, they're going to cost us £24,000, the chairs, and so on. So this is listing the items that we're offering out for funding, and it's also showing us whether we actually already have linked opportunities in there for those funded items. So that's where campaigns has changed. I am now going to pop into opportunities, which is a new piece in Donorfy, and show you what that is. And that's really the heart of this part of it. So when I click on opportunities, which is a new thing on the left-hand side, the opportunities page is made up of two halves. You have your pipeline shown across the top here, and then you have your list of current opportunities, which you can filter or search on using these filters down the left-hand side or the search box at the top. So this is all the opportunities I have. And opportunities can be of two types. They can be a major gift ask to a major donor, or they can be an application for a grant from a trust. So that's what the colours mean up here. Our pipeline is made up of money that's coming from the orange columns, which is major gift asks, or the green columns, which are trust applications. But because there's such a lot of commonality between the processes of asking for money from either of those two entities, we're combining them into this concept called opportunities rather than having completely separate pipelines for those things. So if we were to add an opportunity, let's add an opportunity for a major gift ask. If you did this from the point of view of being on a constituent record, it would know who you're raising money from. But because I did it from just the main opportunities part, it needs to know which constituent it is. So let's find Roger Abbott in my list. And there he is. So one thing you'll immediately notice here is that it has brought up his profile of what we know about him in terms of his research on the right-hand side. So we can edit this here further if we find out more about him, and it saves it into his constituent record. But the main part of the opportunity is up here. So we're describing the opportunity. Let's say it's going to be funding for the new library. Just like a subject for this opportunity. We're assigning it to somebody. I think I'm logged in as Louise Goddard, so I'll assign it to myself. We'll say which campaign we're asking for money for. Library campaign. And we can now choose those fundable items. So remember, we have PA system, we have bookshelves. So we're choosing the things that are in there. And it's also sort of helpfully showing us other opportunities that already exist from other potential donors for those things that are being listed there. We're now in the pipeline section down here, and it's asking us to mention which stage we're at. So let's say we're at the ask stage of a major donor solicitation. We've built in the 7 steps of major donor fundraising here. So as you'll know from any training you've been on, that starts with identification, research, planning, asking, closing, and something else, I forget the rest, thanking, and stewardship, I think, is at the end. So this is like a stage of this opportunity, and we can say here what percentage of certainty we have against that money coming in. How much money? £7,000. And what is the expected close date of this opportunity? Let's put it back into end of June next year. I can enter notes about this opportunity, which I can format. I can add pictures and that kind of thing if I wish, and links. And I can upload documents as well. So if I have PDFs or research documents I want to add in there, I can attach them to this opportunity. Now, this is Roger Abbott, this potential major gift giver. And it may be that Roger Abbott is a VIP, and we don't actually get to speak to him very often. So we get to speak more to his PA or somebody. So down here, we can specify who the contact is that we're speaking to about this opportunity, even though it's going to be from Roger Abbott if he writes the check. So Mike Jones here is our opportunity contact in this case. So that's the sort of basic anatomy of an opportunity. And then if I click on some more tabs here, we can see some more information about the opportunity. So the Tasks tab is a range of tasks that we may have associated with this opportunity, like call in to wish him a Happy New Year. So here's a task assigned to Louise on 12th of January, maybe it's a bit late, I don't know, but save changes. And that immediately populates a task for Louise to do that on the 12th of January. And we can see from Louise's task list up here that she actually has 2 overdue tasks. This is across everything, not just this opportunity. This is why it appears at the top of her screen. It's reminding her that she's got 2 overdue ones, none due today, and 4 in the future, including this Happy New Year reminder. So they sit there as reminders, and they're in Donorfy as tasks. We then have pledges. So as an opportunity matures and you get more of a sense of when the money is coming in and in what tranches it's coming in, we can add multiple pledges to the opportunity. So let's say we're going to get slice number 1 of the money, and it's £3,500. It's had a status of pledged, promised, received, or cancelled. Let's say it's pledged. It's going to be against the PA system, because that was one of the things he said, and it's going to be on the 1st of October. Okay, so that's now entered as a pledge. You have multiple pledges within the opportunity, obviously, across multiple years. And an opportunity, like a constituent, has a timeline. So a timeline might be a record of emails sent in and out. It also tracks the stage change. Remember the stage of the opportunity, one of the 7 stages of major giving. It tracks the change history anyway for you. But if you were to make a phone call and you wanted to track the actual conversation and note it in there, that's what the timeline is for. So there's an opportunity, and that's now saved in the opportunities list and will appear in the pipeline. So we can see the pipeline here. I think he was a June or something, I can't remember what he was. And it's taken the amount and it's multiplied it by the certainty, the 30% that I put on there earlier. So it's not forecasting or pipelining the whole amount, it's the amount according to how likely we've said it's going to be. And you get 2 years worth of pipeline, and one question I'll have for you actually is whether that's a bit extravagant, whether 1 year is enough, because everything that's after a year we put in the later column, 2 year, and everything before is prior. Question coming there from Justine on the chat. Are the 7 steps editable? They are editable, yes. They come out of the box as 7 steps, but you can create your own sort of mechanism alternative to that. So that's a major donor gift. if I was to put on a gift for, application for a grant, obviously that's going to be for a charitable trust as opposed to a major donor. So I'll find a trust. Got one in here, I think, called Acorn Trust. Acorn Tree Trust, there we go. We're putting application in, allocate it to me, Louise. It's the library campaign. It's a very similar process. She's funding, they're funding something else. The stages would differ. I haven't set this up properly yet. The stages would differ for a trust. 50% certain of receiving £10,000. Expecting to close that in September. Usual notes and that kind of thing. I can create tasks, pledges, and timeline just as the major gift, and it's now saving that opportunity. Back to the list. Here's the pipeline. The pipeline also appears, if you remember your home page in Donorfy, you have a home page with dashboards on it, and the pipelines also appear now on here as well. So pledges and opportunities. Just check back to my presentation. I think that's everything covered. So what I'm going to do now is open it up to some questions. So feel free to unmute and I will stop the recording as well. Okay.